today. I actually want to just take a few minutes and hold almost like a family meeting for us here at LCBC and to tell you about a few things that are coming. Did you guys ever have family meetings when you were growing up and you were kids? Mine were always weird, right? They were like, we go into the room of the house that no one ever went into that had plastic on the furniture. Do you guys remember those? Anyways, that's where we held our family meetings, but I want to do a little bit of a family meeting just to kind of tell you a few things that are happening here. And if this is your first time here at LCBC, I think it's a great weekend to be here to hear what we're all about. This is a real special weekend for us here at LCBC for a couple of different reasons. One is that, as you've already heard, we had thousands of people from our church head out into communities to make the love of Jesus easy to see through our Impact PA efforts. I am so grateful. I want to tell you this. I am so grateful to be a part of a church that knows that following Jesus changes the way we show up for our neighbors. It changes the way we live. It changes the way we love our communities. It changes the way that we care for the overlooked and under-resourced. And we still have numbers and stories coming in from what happened this weekend with Impact PA, but next weekend we're gonna make sure to update you and celebrate everything that we saw God do this weekend through our Impact PA efforts. The other reason, though, this is a real special weekend for us as a church is because this weekend we're actually putting a cap on an initiative that we started 3 years ago that we just called For the One. You know, for almost 4 decades now as a church, we have been relentlessly focused on some of the very last words that Jesus spoke to his followers when he said this. This is in Matthew 28. Jesus said, go make disciples. Go and make disciples. Disciples is just followers, someone who follows Jesus. He's saying, go, make disciples. This is why we talk all the time here as a church, that our mission as a church is to introduce more people to Jesus and together fully follow him. That is why we exist. And I want to point that out because the gravitational pull of a church is not to go. The gravitational pull of a church is to stay. It's to stay comfortable. It's to stay safe. To just hunker down with all the people that are already here that we love. And over time, it's just like churches drift into this. You slowly forget we don't exist for ourselves. We don't just exist for the people who are already here. We exist to go, to invest in people who do not yet know Jesus and invite them here to meet him. We exist for the one not here. And 3 years ago, we were dreaming about the next chapter that God had for us as a church, and we set out to move the mission of introducing more people to Jesus forward in 3 very specific ways that we believed God was leading us in. And specifically, this is what we kind of launched out on a few years ago. We said we want to expand our digital and online reach. God, what could you do? Because we want to show up for people before they ever show up to church. So God, could we do if we expanded that? We wanted to grow our community gatherings. In other words, get into new communities across the state, and we wanted to launch new locations. And with this effort, 3 years ago, we set a goal to try to raise around $20 million to move these efforts ahead. And as you always do, you never, just LCB, this is who you are. As you always do, you responded because you are a church that gets it. You're a church that understands that the mission of introducing more people to Jesus is worthy of our greatest efforts. It's worthy of our sacrifices. And thousands of you stepped up, and we had $24 million committed to these efforts. And I want you to know that as of today, we have now had $24 million come in towards these efforts. And I know that some of you are clapping. You can count for that. You can clap. Some of you are still finishing out those commitments, which is great because we've got more opportunities coming, some of which I'm going to tell you about in just a few moments from now. But I just want to paint a picture for you of what we have seen God do because of your relentless commitment to reaching just one more, to being about for the one and giving towards that mission. I'll kind of do it by way of a map. I'll show you. This is LCBC in 2022, 3 years ago. This is LCBC. We had 19 locations at the time, and because of our For the One efforts, we have seen God empower us to do so many incredible things. So I just want to highlight a few. Our For the One efforts have enabled us to expand our capacity in Hanover. Our Hanover location has experienced remarkable growth. Some weekends they've had 35, 40, some weekends up to 50% growth year over year. And now we are doubling the size of their building, a project which should be completed by the end of this year, which is gonna give us the capacity to reach over 1,200 people a weekend there now. Because of our For the One efforts, we're able to launch our Altoona location. And we've now moved them into a space that they're reaching hundreds of people. In fact, last weekend was their highest attendance they've ever had. And we're excited. The thing that gets me real excited about Altoona is that's beginning to open up opportunities to get into the western side of the state. We've been able to now launch gatherings in Pottstown and Center Valley. If you don't know where Center Valley is, which is like all of you, Center Valley is the Allentown, Bethlehem region. But now we've got strong gatherings meeting there each week in movie theaters, and we're putting them on a trajectory to becoming fully built out campuses in the future. We were able to launch our Sinking Spring location and build them an incredible new building that opened just before Easter, just a few months ago. And since we opened that building, they've already doubled in attendance in the last few months. Our For the One efforts enabled us to launch campuses in West York and Willow Street, where now 1,000 people are attending between them in local schools where we set up and take down church every single Sunday. And what's real fun is that we also have groups now meeting to watch our gatherings in Williamsport, Selinsgrove, State College on the campus of Penn State University, and Reading. And we're providing support to them as well as they serve those communities. So much is happening, but that's not it. That's not all. We've also seen our online and digital reach expand significantly. Again, we want to show up for people before they ever show up to church. All the orange that you see on this map here, it actually represents real households and communities that are engaging with LCBC online right now. We're now averaging over 8,000 people a weekend through our online efforts. Our reach to expand, we're continuing to expand our reach through our podcast, daily life content that we send out, and our app usage, where we're keeping more people than ever connected into the life of following Jesus. So much has happened. I'll put it this way. If some of you are like not a graphical person, you're more like Excel spreadsheet kind of person, you know who you are, the accountants out there. Let me put it on a list for you. Here's a list. Think about this. This is crazy. In the last 36 months, 36 months ago, we had 19 locations. Today, we have 25. 36 months ago, we had 9,800 monthly LCBC app users. Today, we have over 17,000. Just 36 months ago, we were averaging 20,281 people on a weekend. Today, we're averaging almost 26,000 every weekend. That's in the last 36 months. But let me tell you the most important number of them all. This is the number that I get most excited about. This is the number that explains why we exist. Just in the last 36 months, we have baptized 2,158 people at this church. And you can clap for that. That's people who are going public, that their lives changed by Christ. We are seeing, I need you to hear this, man, we are seeing a work of God in our midst. I believe that. We are seeing God do a work in our midst right now. And I believe that it is because you have kept, LCBC, you've kept your eyes focused on the mission that Jesus gave us when he said to go and introduce more people to Jesus and together fully follow him. And for all we have seen God do, now I believe we're just getting started. We're just getting started. I want to tell you, in light of that, about a couple of opportunities in front of us right now that we're very excited to run after in the days ahead. The first opportunity is actually to buy a property in the West York region that's going to serve as a permanent home for our West York campus. I told you a moment ago that we launched our West York campus a little over a year ago, and they've already grown to about 500 people meeting each week in a small school. Sort of as a sidebar, to time out real quick, here's one of the things I think is really, really cool. Our East York campus sent a couple hundred people to help start West York a year ago, and they have already filled up every single one of those seats that got emptied when East York launched that. And now we've got an opportunity to get our West York location into an incredible building that we think has the potential to reach thousands. We've got a contract now on 8.5 acres of land in West Manchester Township. This gives us the ability to build a 36,000 square foot building. That puts about a 550 seat auditorium there with plenty of space for hundreds of kids and students. So that's the first opportunity in front of us. The second is actually to move forward with getting our Willow Street campus into a permanent home as well. Our Willow Street campus has been meeting in Penn Manor High School for the last 18 months and have almost 500 people meeting there now on weekends. There's a couple of 100,000 people who live within 20 minutes of the building that we're going to build, and we think that we have the potential to reach thousands through our Willow Street campus and through this new building and this property. What's real fun about this property actually is that this is going to be a part of a new multi-family residential project of apartments and townhomes, and our church is going to be right in the middle of all of it. Our plans are to build a 38,000 square foot building with an auditorium that can seat almost 650 with room for engaging kids and students as well. So here's the opportunity. Let me just kind of boil it down. The opportunity in front of us is to get two campuses that we've launched in the last couple of years into permanent homes so that we can strengthen our reach in these communities where people need Jesus. And if you've been around, you might know this. If you haven't, I'll just kind of tell you this. Historically, what we found is that as soon as we move a campus from a temporary space into a permanent home, like we build a building and get them in there, they've doubled in attendance literally almost within a week. And so we're excited about this. We estimate that the cost for our West York project is probably gonna be around $15 million. We think the cost for our Willow Street project is gonna be around $16 million. And I know that is a substantial investment for both of those properties. That is not lost on me, trust me. But I'd also just remind us that, man, we've been here before. We've been here before as a church. In fact, if you're at one of our locations right now, or if you've benefited from an incredible online experience, it's because thousands of people over the years have given and sacrificed so that we can invest millions to launch new campuses across the state to reach more people. I want you to know as well that we feel very positive about the financial position that we're in as a church. One reason for that is the available capital and resources that we currently have on hand that we're ready to put to work. The other reason is we feel positive is just we're seeing continued giving come in towards future expansion efforts that are putting us in a real good position with these projects. In fact, I'll just speak very personally here just for a second. Jenny and I, we actually came to the end of our 4-to-1 commitment recently, and we just decided we're gonna keep our monthly 4-to-1 commitment giving. We're just gonna keep that going towards ongoing expansion efforts because we know there's more ground to take. There's more ground to take. And I would just invite you that as you wrap up your 4-to-1 commitment, if you're wanting to keep investing in the mission, just consider joining Jenny and I. Consider joining us in that. Because there's more opportunities coming. There's more coming. Opportunities to get Pottstown and Center Valley into buildings at some point. There's gonna be new ground to be taken in other communities, and your continued generosity and support, it helps to set the pace for how fast we're able to run after some of those opportunities. And so all that to say, bottom line, between the capital we have on hand, the continued giving to expansion efforts that we're experiencing, and a construction line of credit that we could use if we needed to for any small gap in timing or resources, we're in a very good position to move forward with West York and Willow Street. And so our leadership team and our board of elders is recommending that we move ahead with these opportunities. And if you're a partner here, if you've gone through the partnership process, I'm asking you to vote to affirm this direction in 2 weekends from now. And so we're gonna have a partner vote a couple weekends from now for the West York property to move forward with that, to move forward with Willow Street property, and then to bring on 2 new board members. We do this every May into June as well, and so we'd love for you to affirm that as well. You want all the details, if you're like, I like details, go to lcbcchurch.com/partner vote. Man, there's a lot of weeds you can get into there, all right? I kind of kept it high level, get all the details there. And here's what I want you to hear though more than anything else. Here's what I want you to hear. You listen? We're not done. We're not done. We're not done. And I'm gonna tell you, I'm about as fired up as ever about what we are seeing God do here right now. What we are seeing God do. But I'd also just remind us, LCBC, listen, as fun as it is to see all the ways God is working, all those numbers, that's real fun to see and all that, it still comes down to just one name at a time, doesn't it? Just names. It's the names of the ones that you pray for, that you love, family members, friends, coworkers, neighbors, the ones that you're inviting to church. It's the names of the people. We got thousands of names on stages all over the state right now, people that we want to see them know Jesus, to find the freedom and salvation in Jesus Christ. It still comes down to names. Names like Jeremiah. Jeremiah first came to LCBC for Easter last year. And something about, never been to our church, walked in for the first time Easter, and something about the experience grabbed hold of his heart. He didn't know what it was, but just something. So he decided to come back next week, and then the next week, and then the next week. And he just kept coming back. And then in October of last year, Jeremiah made the most important decision of his life at our church. He decided to place his faith in Jesus Christ as his Savior. And that man has been changed. And he just got baptized a few months ago. I'll show you a picture of Jeremiah here. I got to meet him a few weeks ago. He's now serving on our usher team, helping people find seats. When I saw him, just look at him for a second. He doesn't help you find a seat. He tells you where to sit. And you listen. And you sit where Jeremiah tells you to sit, man. Dude is ripped. Anyways, but you know why he serves as an usher now? I know why, because he said it's the reason. He wants to help people find their seat so they can experience what he's experienced. He wants them to help them find their seat, yep. So they can taste what he's tasted, so they can be changed, so they can discover new life in Christ. And to top it off, his wife has given her life to Christ as well. This is now a family changed by Christ. We don't have time to waste. I mean, I feel urgency. We don't have time to waste in introducing more people to Jesus. There's too much at stake. There's too many more Jeremiahs out there who need to know that God loves them. And Jesus Christ can transform their life. And I want you to hear this. I am so grateful, LCBC, for you. It is one of my greatest privileges in life to get to stand shoulder to shoulder with you on mission to go reach a world that needs it. I just love you, and I'm so grateful. All right. Well, over the last few weeks, we've been looking at things that live under the surface in our lives. We all have some things that live under the surface. Things that, if left unchecked, if we never attend to them, if we never recognize them, things that live under the surface that can wreck us, can actually be devastating. We've got to pay attention to the things that live under the surface of our lives, because as we've been saying over these last few weeks in this series, I'm just going to say it again, this has kind of been the main premise of the series. The most important parts of you are not the parts of you that everyone else can see. It's the parts of you that live under the surface. Those are the most important parts of you. It's the thoughts that we obsess over. You ever obsessed over something? It's the feelings that take control. No one sees those. It's the motives that we live with. That's invisible to people. And yet all of those things under the surface, they're not visible to other people, and yet they shape everything about the way we live our life. And we've talked about, over the last few weeks, we've talked about the anger that lives under the surface and how we can bring that out into God's presence. And we talked last week about temptation that lives under the surface. And we said that when we're not gonna try to fight temptation on our own, we're gonna bring that temptation out from under the surface and bring it into the light of God's power so that it can lose its power. And today I wanna talk for just a few moments about something that lives under the surface in every single one of our lives. That all of us at some point, we gotta deal with this thing that lives under the surface at some point. I wanna talk today about guilt. I wanna talk about guilt. You ever felt guilty about anything? If you said no, you should feel guilty for lying in church right now. Man, we've all felt it. And listen, man, I know that guilt's not like a real feel-good topic. You're gonna be like, Jason, it's sunny outside. Why we gotta talk about that? Look, man, I'd rather talk about 1,000 other things. And yet, here's the reality, guys. We wouldn't have time enough today. We would not have enough time if I were to tell you and share with you the countless men and women that I've spoken to over the years who have been paralyzed by guilt, who've lived defeated lives because of the guilt that they carry under the surface that they don't know what to do with. And I just care too much about you not to talk about the real things of life that hold us back from living a life of freedom that God intends for us. And you know, a theme throughout this entire series, sort of a thing that we've just kind of, beat that we've been drumming all series long, is that the only way to deal with the things under the surface of our life and experience life as God intends is to bring those things under the surface out into the light, to bring them out into the light of God's grace. And last week, we said that there was a sort of a truth that was the linchpin in dealing with temptation. This is what we said last week. We said, you are only as strong as you are honest. You're only as strong as you are honest. And today, I actually want to take that same statement. I just want to tweak it a little bit to fit specifically about this topic of guilt. This is going to be sort of a fundamental truth today. You are only as free as you are honest as well. You will only ever be as free as you are honest. And the reality is that some of us are here today and we are bound up. We're not free, we're not experiencing freedom. We're locked up by a sense of guilt today because we won't face it. It's under the surface and we won't acknowledge it. We won't bring it out into the light. And you know, all throughout the scriptures, you find stories of broken men and women who've just done some really stupid things. They've gone their own ways. They've just made a mess of things. All throughout the Bible, you see this, man. It makes me feel at home. I like it. You find all these men and women who are living with a sense of guilt because of the ways that they decided to walk away from God's best for their life. And almost 3,000 years ago, there was a king who wrote a prayer to God, and in that prayer, he described his attempt to keep guilt under the surface. He actually gives voice to it. But he also described the freedom that he experienced when he chose honesty to bring it out from under the surface. And his words are just as relevant today as they were all those years ago when he first wrote them. If there was anyone who knew what it was to carry around some guilt, it was this man, it was this king. His name was David. You ever want to read like an R-rated chapter of the Bible? There's a few, by the way. Talk to me, I'll hook you up, all right? There's a few. But one of them is 2 Samuel 11. Go read it. Because if you read 2 Samuel 11, it's in the Old Testament, you're gonna read about David's affair. Turn the page, and you're gonna read about all the lies and cover-ups and how they all failed. Turn the page, you keep reading, you're gonna see all the ways that he actually orchestrated the killing of a man so that his secrets would not get out. Keep reading and turn the page, and you're gonna find out about the shame that he brought on his family and how his entire family dissolved as a result of his sin. But then he encountered the grace of God. And he wrote about his experience with guilt in this way. This is in Psalm 32. David writes this. He says, yes, what joy for those whose record the Lord has cleared of what? There's our word, of guilt. Whose lives are lived in complete honesty. When I refused to confess my sin, what happened? My body wasted away. And I groaned all day long. David's saying, look, I've tried to deal with my guilt two different ways. He says, I've experienced the joy and the freedom that comes from being honest about the things that are going on under the surface. But he says, I've also spent time and energy just trying to cover it up and keep it all stuffed under the surface. And see, he says something really interesting here. He talks about our guilt as being something, look what he says, something that the Lord has cleared away. Something that God can clear. It's almost like the idea of being cleaned. Actually, in another passage in the Old Testament, the prophet Jeremiah, it's in chapter 2, he speaks on behalf of God to his people, and God says this to his people. God says, no amount of soap can make you clean. I still see the stain of your guilt. I actually think it's helpful to think about guilt as a stain. It's one of the ways that the Bible describes it. It's like dirt, stain. It's kind of on us. We carry around our guilt. We wear it. We take it wherever we go. And I don't know your story, but I know the stains I've brought onto my life. I know the stains I've worn. This one right here. These are the countless lies and hiding the drinking from everyone in my early 20s. This one right here. That tells the story of the time I just laid into one of my kids for not sweeping the right way. This down here, there's quite a few on here actually from words that have just been spoken in anger that left Jenny hurting. Man, I got stains. I couldn't count all the stains of guilt I've accumulated. What about you? What about you? And in this incredible insight from God's word, David says that it is possible to have an awareness of our guilt. Like we can know it's all there and just refuse to deal with it. Just keep it under the surface. And we're real good at that, actually. We're real good at trying to manage the guilt instead of dealing with it head on. It's like no one even has to teach us how to do that. We just know how to do that. You know how we do that? Some of us are trying to manage our guilt by just pretending it away. Just pretend it away. How do we do that? Well, I mean, there's a couple ways we pretend it away. One way we pretend it away is by blaming other people for it. Well, yeah, of course, I lied. Yeah, that stain's there. But I didn't know how they were gonna respond if I told the truth, so I kinda had to. It's their fault. Yeah, you're right, I said those things, yep, But nothing else seems to get them to pay attention, so I have to talk that way to them. Yeah, I cheated, but if they would have been more attentive to my needs, I wouldn't have had to. We try to pretend it by blaming others. Sometimes we try to pretend it all away by just making light of it. You know what I mean? It's just a mistake. There's nothing more than that, it's just a mistake. Or we say things like, man, I wasn't lying, I was exaggerating. I tried that one with my parents, never worked. I wasn't lying, I was just exaggerating. Or about this one, it's not like I'm the only one doing it. Just try to make light of it. And then sometimes we pretend by numbing it away. I just don't want to look. We drink it away. We distract ourselves from feeling it. We find ways to detach from having to look at the stains. Some of us try to pretend it away. Some of us, it's not pretending. You know what it is? We try to pay for it on our own. We try to pay for it by trying to even the scales. You know what I mean? For every stain we have, it's like, well, we'll do one good thing, right? We try to bring it all back in balance. This is kind of the religious impulse. It's almost like we grab a tide marker, like for the soul. You know, it's like, okay, that stain's there. All right, I'm just going to crud, that ain't working. You know what I mean? It's like we just work. We work harder. We work up a sweat. I'm just going to try to erase it. It's like we can clean ourselves up. That's what we think. We can just clean ourselves up. All right, I got a stain there and do that. And you know what that does? It drains you. It exhausts us. It weighs us down. You know why? Because as good as we may be, maybe we can, scratch one away or something like that. But you know what happens the next day? New stain. And we can't keep up. And it becomes this endless cycle. And David is saying, man, I did that. I refused to bring it out in the light. I pretended. I tried to pay for it. I refused. And look what he says happened. Do you remember what he says happened as a result? My body wasted away. I groaned as a result. In other words, you want me to summarize it for you? It didn't work. Pretending it's not there doesn't mean it's not. Trying to pay for it on our own is not going to lead to freedom. And some of us know this story so well today, man. Because you've told your spouse that a particular habit's out of your life, but you've picked it back up again, and now she doesn't know or he doesn't know, and now all that energy is going to just pretending. It is exhausting. It's the things on your phone you don't want anybody else to see, and so we pretend, but we're getting tired from all the hiding. It's, your parents have asked you not to be involved with that guy, not to be involved with that girl, and you, to their face, you're like, okay, got it, yep. But behind their back's a different story, and it's weighing you down. And it's like David is pleading with us in this moment. He's saying, man, you will never experience joy in your life when your life is not lived in complete honesty. Some of you are here and you're like, I don't have a lot of joy. And I'm not trying to be harsh. I'm just trying to tell you the truth. It's because you're hiding. And we're only as free as we are honest. And David knew that because look what he says next. He says, finally, I got honest. I confessed all those stains, all that guilt, all my sins to you, and I stopped trying to hide my guilt. I said to myself, I'll confess my rebellion to the Lord, and listen, and you forgave me. And all my guilt is what? It's gone. Let me just point something out real quick. Confession, he says, I confess, I got honest about it. I brought it out from under the surface. Confession is not feeling sorry. Confession is telling the truth. That's almost literally what it means, to agree with someone. And see, this is important because there's a part of me that sometimes wonders, like, why do we need to confess if God already knows? You ever thought that? But see, we don't confess because we need to relate and restate the facts of what happened to God. It's not like we confess and God's like, wait, hold up, you did what? Confession is agreement with God. Confession is saying, you have told me and you have said that the best life is this way, your ways, and I have gone the opposite direction. It was wrong. That's confession. It's agreeing that the way I treated them was wrong. God, this stain, it was wrong. God, the stain from that, it was wrong. The things I said, wrong. That the way I used her, it was wrong. The flirting on the side that I'm doing, it's wrong, God. The lies I'm telling, it's wrong. And listen, it's the only way to freedom. And I know this is difficult, and I know that idea is challenging to some of you, but some of you are like, that would be painful, but there's two kinds of pain. There is pain in confessing, because it means you gotta do something that's courageous. You gotta tell the truth, but there's also a pain in keeping it under the surface. But only one of those pains brings freedom. You are only as free as you are honest. And there is a truth about God revealed here in this passage that we cannot afford to miss. How does David end that passage? You forgave me. And all my guilt is gone. Do you see how declarative that is? He doesn't say, and you might forgive me. He doesn't say, man, I hope you could forgive me. He doesn't say you could forgive me. These are declarations. They're not aspirations. God does forgive. God does clear the guilt. Do you understand the relentless, unlimited, never-stopping grace of God for you? That his love knows no limits for you. That there is no stain so deep in your life, no stain so deep in your life that his relentless grace and mercy cannot wash it clean. You know the word forgave here, where David said you forgave. That word forgave in the Old Testament, it can also be translated as carrying something away. That's what it literally means, to carry something away. One way of thinking about it is that forgiveness is God's decision to carry away our sin. I can't overstate how massively important this is to understanding. Why? Because by removing the stain of our guilt and our sin from us, he separates what we've done from the person. He separates who we are from what we've done. Which means, here's why this is so important, which means that by doing this, God is able to remove the sin from us and he condemns the sin. He's holy. He's just, he's perfect. No stain can exist in his presence, but he separates us, which means he can condemn all that without condemning us. He pours out love on us. And this was put on full display in Jesus Christ. As the very first followers of Jesus, as they reflected on all that Jesus had done for them on the cross, this is how one of the first Christians named Paul described it. He said this, he said, God made him, who? That's Jesus. God made Jesus Christ, who had no sin, no stain, nothing, no sin, to be sin for us. Why? So that in him we might become the righteousness of God. Guys, that is the greatest news you will ever hear. That is the greatest news you will ever hear. And I know that word righteousness there, that's kind of a big churchy word. We don't use that word a lot. You know what righteousness means? It's simply a way of saying that we can be right with God, not separated from him. This one powerful statement is describing an exchange that takes place for any of us who want it. It's saying we can hand our guilt over. And the only perfect one, the only one without any stain, who lived a life we could never live, who lived with no sin, you will never find a stain, not a stain to be found, not a spot. Jesus willingly took our guilt on himself, and he became sin for us, and he took all of the consequences we deserve, and in its place, what does he give us? Righteousness. He cleans the slate. He covers us. He clothes us in grace and forgiveness. Our guilt for his righteousness. Our sin for his forgiveness. Our shame for his grace. Are you carrying some guilt under the surface today? Been pretending it's not there? Been trying to pay for it on your own? I want you to actually just think for a moment. Just think right now about the stains you've accumulated in your life. Maybe over the last day, over the last week, over the last year. And I want you to just hold that in front of you for just a moment. I want to ask the band to come out because I want them to sing a song over you that describes everything that Jesus has done for you. And as you hold in your mind and in your heart the guilt that you've carried, the stains you've incurred, I want you to feel the power. I don't want you to think. I want you to feel the power of this exchange that Jesus offers all of us.